Welcome back everybody to another episode of Direct Comparison. In today's episode, we're going to be comparing the new Call of Duty World War II game to various scenes in the indie-developed Day of Infamy. Just to avoid any confusion ahead of time, both games play very differently and may appeal to different players, so this video is in no way trying to say one game is better than the other. I'm also aware that one of these games is a AAA blockbuster while the other is a small budget game developed by a smaller team. We're simply going to be doing a graphic comparison by looking at some gun model comparisons, textures, and various effects. So to start off, I tested a few weapons that are shared between the two games, including the M1 Garand, the 1911, the BAR, the Thompson, and the MG42. And the first thing I noticed when comparing all of these is how cartoony the source engine looks when compared to Call of Duty's heavily modified Quake engine. Now I'm not saying it looks bad, it's actually an interesting aesthetic that gives Day of Infamy a very cool look. But textures and model designs in general are much more simplistic and feature very little extra detail. The gun models also feel oddly smaller, almost as if they were toy guns in the hands of the characters, whereas the guns in Call of Duty feel like they're a much more accurate size. The muzzle flash actually looks more believable in Day of Infamy when compared to Call of Duty. This is because Call of Duty opts for a more cinematic presentation with exaggerated muzzle flash. Day of Infamy has an outdated engine that can't really do much in terms of volumetric lighting, which is why we get a much more subtle muzzle flash that is barely noticeable, which, in my opinion, is more in line with what these weapons should actually look like when firing. Now I'm just going to go ahead and run a few of these weapon model comparisons, and you can judge for yourself. What do you think looks better? Next up, let's look at the game's special effects, like grenade explosions and smoke effects. As expected, Call of Duty's bigger budget lends itself greatly to these special effects, and we get much more impressive explosions and smoke effects. But I was surprised by the quality of the smoke in Day of Infamy. The smoke has multiple layers, similar to what you'd see in older Call of Duty games, and it's thick enough to actually be effective. But not all games have smoke screens that are actually effective. Now let's take a look at some textures and shadows. Again, no surprises here, the source engine has been going on strong for a while, but there's only so much you can do with it. The ground textures on the beach at the D-Day landing function as a perfect comparison here. As expected, Day of Infamy's ground textures are very simple and don't feature much depth, but I was surprised to see that Call of Duty's textures look almost the same. Sure, we're only using Call of Duty World War II's multiplayer D-Day map to compare, but I still expected more considering most of the textures in Call of Duty are actually pretty decent. This tank barrier also demonstrates the difference in texture and overall object quality pretty well. Then we have the water effects, which look significantly better in Call of Duty, but look incredibly outdated in Day of Infamy. Both games seem to struggle with shadows as well. Day of Infamy has this really weird anisotropic filtering that hurts image quality on shadows significantly, whereas Call of Duty shadows are just barely visible in the environment. Now for the rest of this video, I'm going to show a few extended side-by-side gameplay clips to help give you guys a better idea of how these games stack up. Thank you all for watching, I hope this video was interesting, and feel free to leave any questions or comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this posted every week, and I will see you all next time.